Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert with the Ted Show, our first show of June 2020. I can't believe it's June 1st, start of hurricane season. If you're a Floridian, you know what that means.
Mm.
So I'm very excited to have the one and only Paul Fedynich
We
with
got
us.
it.
Did I do it? All right.
You did it.
You know, I don't know why
Very good.
it's not a hard name. It's just, it's got a good pronunciation to it. So, Paul has written a book, Living Well in Turbulent Times. We're going to talk about that, which I know is on everybody's mind. We'll talk a little bit about real estate, but we always love to talk about origin stories. So, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about you, Paul.
Well, thanks, Ted. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I'm going to try to keep this story about me very brief because I don't want this to be about me. And my story goes back like I've been around since the beginning of dirt. So, I'm a longtime resident of Florida. I love being here, originally from New Jersey, but I've left Florida 3 times, each time returning back to Florida. And Florida is my home. I love it here in the Orlando area and everything that Florida has to offer. So a while back, 1998 to be exact, I actually was living in Chiliota, Florida, and just outside of Orlando, for those not familiar, and living a really good life. Had a great house on 3.5 acres, pool, stay-at-home mom, 3 kids, all doing very well. Business was booming. And I couldn't have asked for much more, except for one day things got turned upside down and my life was never the same. And it set me off on a whole new path. But my wife at the time was bipolar and psychotic. And this was diagnosed. So it's not just me saying, oh my God, got a wife that was crazy, but literally diagnosed, and she absconded with my 3 children. She took them from Florida, ended up in Canada, and eventually down in Mexico. And so this ordeal took many years to come to fruition, get my children back, and actually start living my life again to where I can, live it the way that I want to. Because my life was always, well, what if the kids come back? Right. So during this process, I never dreamt of being a writer. I'm this really shy, introverted person. If you'd known me as a kid, you wouldn't get 2 words out of me if you asked me a question. and so, the thought of writing a book just really didn't come to mind. But I kept a journal of everything that was going on through this process, and eventually that journal turned into a book because people were fascinated by the story and just wanted to know, what happened, and then since the book came out in 2004, people wanted to know, what else has happened? Because in the book, my kids had not returned yet. So,
wow.
So that kind of prompted me during the crisis of 2008. I was in real estate at that point now, a new career, new direction. And of course, now we got another crisis coming up. One of the things
Did you have the kids back in 2008? Just really curious. I don't know the story, so I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So, let me back up a little bit. So one of the things that I really learned in my travels, I was going from Orlando to Montreal for a 4-month span. And during that 4 months, I ended up losing my business, losing the house, losing everything. But during that process, I made it a point that I would talk to people. So at the airport, while sitting down in the waiting area, I would just talk to people. On the airplanes, whoever was next to me, I would just talk to. And surprisingly, I found out, how prevalent bipolar disorder is in our country, for one thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't realize. Before this, I didn't even know what it was. Right. And now all of a sudden, it's all around me, and I'm hearing all these issues. The same with parental abduction. But one of the things, the biggest lesson I took away from this, and I carry it forward, is that no matter how bad your situation may seem at the time, there's always somebody who has a worse situation than you do. Amen. And you've got to always remember that. And that's a big part of that living well in turbulent times, that this too shall pass. And in time, things will get better. But it's hard for sometimes people to see that light at the end of the tunnel. For
I
me,
just got so stressed when I didn't know the story. So when you're talking about that, that just what ran through my mind is, oh my God, what would I do first? Like how would I fight that, especially in other countries? It just seems like, yeah, you had to find a piece of some kind in order for you to get through it. Because honestly, that's what I'm looking for. Like, all right, you've lived the most turbulent as a dad, the most turbulent time I could even imagine. And you are here to talk about it. So you must have learned a lot of really good lessons about patience, I'm guessing all of this, Paul, but kudos to you. I mean, huge blessings and prayers for you. That's an unbelievable story.
yeah, yeah, I've learned a lot, and it was, I spent 23 years prior to that as an electrician and electrical contractor, owned many different businesses along the way, and it was, very successful. But it sent me in a whole new path, and one that I wouldn't have imagined if this crisis didn't happen in my life. And that's what I want people to understand, is that, in fact, John Maxwell has a great definition of what a crisis is. And he takes three different definitions and combines them into one. And he says a crisis is an intense time of difficulty requiring a decision that will be a turning point. And so true that is. And I can see it in my life, especially reflecting back. Now, this first crisis that I went through, I learned a lot. But the next big crisis was the crash of 2008. Now, I had my two daughters had come back to live with me in 2006. So I had to buy a house at the height of the market. And I debated, do I buy, do I rent? What do I do here? The market's going down, but I'm still making good money. I can afford to do this, and so on. But, I found myself, I did repeat some mistakes. But it was in 2009 that I came up with this idea of my book, How to Live Well in Turbulent Times. And actually, I had given some talks on the topic when I was in Delaware. I relocated to Delaware in 2002 in Ocean City, Maryland area. And so that's where I got started in real estate. But I started talking about, the fact of living well. You see people they're not taking good care of themselves,
Right.
So how can you get through a crisis? The most important person is you. And that doesn't need to be in an egotistical way, but you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself first, how can you take care of anybody else? So it's really important that, that you stay healthy, that you do the things that are important. You need to have emotional resilience. You need to have the financial literacy, to get you through. When this COVID-19 came through, I really felt for those that were living paycheck to paycheck, because I still remember those days. I've been there, done that.
Right.
And that is really, really difficult. And it took many, many years for me to really get that straight in my head, that, what, the smarter I am with my finances, the less I need the stuff, the more I can take care of myself. And so when COVID-19 came in and we were quarantined, I was already in my home for 2 weeks prior to the shutdown.
Oh, wow.
Because I was steadfast. It was a situation where Valerie, my fiance, was going away for 2 weeks to become a yoga instructor. So I'm like, I'm going to be home, just me and the two dogs, for 2 weeks. I'm like, I am going to finally sit down and take care of the writing, the creative stuff, the new things that I need to do that are going to project me and put me where I want to be down the road. Okay, so I started working on my continuing education classes that I wanted to create. And I broke out this book, finally, again. I broke it out last year. Last year, I had a quadruple bypass. It was a year ago in May.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, this would be a great time. This is another crisis in my life. Let me go ahead, and I'm home for 8 weeks. Let me break this out and get to it. But I couldn't focus on it. I can only focus on getting myself well during this process. But But now, I retired as a managing broker for Premier Sotheby's International Realty in November to jumpstart my speaking, coaching, and training career in January. And just as I got that up and going,
Yeah.
I got contracts to do some classes, and I'm like, okay, yeah, the wheels are turning and things are happening. And then boom, all of a sudden, just like that, my world stopped like everybody else's, and contracts
What do you
became.
have to do? What did you do to continue to be creative and stay resilient? Did you plan? Did you write? Did you finally get to that point where you could be creative since you were basically forced there? What happened?
I focused on everything that I need to do that I couldn't do when I'm out there hustling. When you're out there hustling every day and you're meeting people and you're prospecting and you're doing all the work that you need to do to build your business, when you get down at the end of the day, do you really feel like sitting down and writing and creating? No, because you're drained. All that prospecting. We all know what, prospecting takes a lot out of us. That's why you're supposed to do that first thing in the morning, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So I was like, wow, I got time. I have no excuse. I can't say I got to go do this or I got to go do that. I'm right here at my desk. And so I spent the first 2 weeks. And then when they said, oh, we're shutting down for 2 weeks, I'm like, whoa, yay. All right. I'm all for it, man. That's fine with me. And then when they extended it, I was extremely okay for me. Now, I felt bad for other people because I know
Sure.
financial hardship is going to bring, but I'm like, wow, yeah, force me to stay here, then I'm going to keep doing that behind the scenes work that needs to be done. So I've gotten some CE classes done. I've still got a couple more to go, but I'm deep into the production of the book. It's going to take a few more months to get the book out, but I've got a lot of the priority stuff done and out of the way. So now I'm getting ready to hit the ground running again. I've got some lunch and learn set up. I've got some continuing education classes set up that I'm going to do virtually before that 90-day window is up. I'm feeling that could be to extend it a little bit too, because what I'm learning is that events that have been planned during the summer, we're starting to see them dwindle down and getting canceled.
Yeah, I know. It's still summer there. People are still afraid of summer, I guess. I want to ask you something. What is something that you could tell? You obviously have risen to the occasion during all of these turbulent times that you've experienced. What are some things that you do that help you with that? You said you journal, so if you want to talk about that, but what kind of advice could you give? Because I think there's a lot of people struggling right now, a lot. And they've been furloughed, they've been extended furloughed. There's misinformation out there. There's too much information or not enough information. People are stressed out to the max.
Yeah.
But you seem to have a really good grip on how to stay focused. So what are some words of wisdom you can share with them?
Yeah. So, you should take this time and educate yourself. We've been forced to take downtime. That's a luxury. We struggle to find that downtime when we're working so hard as we do, especially in our industries, real estate and mortgage. And I mean, we have to work really, really hard, and we work a lot of hours. So now you're forced to stay at home. So, what I did was I looked at, well, what are all those things I need to do for myself that I've been wanting to do, but it's like time is a problem, right? So people should be looking at that, and it's not too late because, while we're kind of coming out now and we're slowly getting back to it, there's still time. This is going to be a long recovery. So you have to think about what you want to do. When I made a transition back in 2000, 1998, my kids were taken. I was slowly losing my business, losing my home, going bankrupt. I partnered up with some friends, and we did an internet radio station, seeking venture capital funds and try to make that grow and build something of it. And it didn't work out the way we had hoped. And then I was like, okay, so now what do I do? Well, I took a 2-week road trip. I went from here. I rode up the East Coast to family in Raleigh, North Carolina, then in Delaware, then in New Jersey, ending up my best friend in Syracuse, New York, and then coming back. And in that 2 weeks time of clearing my head and really just talking, being around family and friends, I came back and I knew exactly what I needed to do next.
That's nice.
And so you have to pull yourself away from the situation, and it was actually, I'm in the midst, I can't make an announcement yet, but I'm in the midst of some new things coming up that just haven't developed over the last 2 weeks, a lot of which stem from, we went away. We went down to the river house and where we can relax and disconnect. And we talked and we thought, and all of a sudden I was like, yeah, you know what, we can do this. And so we're going to move together.
You kept the creative processes going. So let me ask you, what do you think about, I'd be remiss if I didn't, what do you think the real estate market is going to be like over the summer and into the fall?
Well, it's funny. I've actually had some of my agents that I've brokered for the last several years have called me asking the same question. And I do have a mirror, an app on here for what are those balls, whatever you call them. I can't even think of the name of it. But anyway, I asked it and it said, yeah, whatever. And look, there's no way to know. All the people in 2008 that predicted were all wrong. Every single one of them. And I relied on some of those forecasts, and I learned that no, I'm not going to rely on any forecasts. You have to look around, because it was even back in 2009 when the market's crashing and I'm looking around, I'm like, wow, well, but they're still making money and they're still making money. Why aren't I making money? So you have to figure out, it's still there. It doesn't go away. It's just that it's going to be different. So you got to figure out, well, how do I get a piece of the pie? I believe that our real estate market is going to continue to stay robust. It took a little dip because it just had to. I mean, people were confined to their homes. But I follow a lot of people on social media, and there was still a lot of great activity. I mean, there were homes closing in the midst of this. There were homes going on the contract right in the middle of all of it. I had a cousin who bought a home and settled during the process. So people still have to buy and sell homes. Yeah. And people are going to continue to relocate here because, look, I grew up in New Jersey, and I have a lot of Bergen County up in the northeast.
Me too. I was born in Ridgewood.
Ridgewood. Okay. I was Cliffside Park, Hillsdale, and Park Ridge. So
I was born there, lived in Ramsey. I've been down here since I was 11, but I have very fond memories of that area.
Yeah, and it's a great area, but in comparison to Florida, I mean, come on, who doesn't want to leave that area and come down here? They all want to, okay? And so that's why they come here. That's why we have almost 1,000 people a day that move to Florida. And so even more so now, with the way that they've been affected by COVID, and more companies are going to be going to the work from home status. So now you can be anywhere. So we're going to still see that influx. We're going to see the parks, open up slowly and get themselves continuously to the point where they're back to 100%. And so over time, we're going to recover. Now, it'll take a little time to be as robust as we were pre-COVID, but I have no worries. I came down here in 1978, and I've seen the economy in Orlando go up and down. I was in the housing business with my electrical contracting firm, and yeah, we had some slow times, but there was always work to be had. It's the same in real estate. In the midst of 2008, 2009, yeah, the market really took a hit, a bad hit. But there was still business. There was still business, and there will continue to still be business now as we move forward. Whenever that next downturn happens, because that's inevitable, that's always there waiting in the wings. Sure. But position yourself for it. Have yourself. There's nothing wrong with having multiple streams of income. So position yourself now. While times are good, you prepare for the bad times. When times are bad, you prepare for the good times. So put yourself in a position where, there's side gigs out there you can get and you can do. And actually, I was on a social media in a group, and somebody had made a post about being solicited from an insurance company as a side gig. And it's like, oh, it appears that they're hitting all the real estate agents because they're prime targets. and I refrained from commenting, but I read some of the thread, and I'm like, some of the comments were like, "Oh my God, why would you want to do something like that?" Well, if you do something like that,
why wouldn't you?
Sure, it's all about multiple streams. You put all your eggs in one basket, and that basket gets taken away, you have no eggs.
Well, that's what I think a lot of people faced. And I think that's why people are now finally kind of coming out of it. And then you're seeing a lot of ideas really being extrapolated and put into play, which is what we see a lot on the show. A lot of people are coming up with cool ideas. You can't announce yours, but all right. So tell people how they can learn more about living well in turbulent times, learn more about Paul Fed, learn more about you and what you're doing, because you're an inspiration. Your story is amazing, and I think anybody would be motivated and inspired by it. So what's the best way for them to reach you, Paul?
Well, thanks, Ted. I appreciate the compliments on that. And right now, my website that's active is paulfed.com. Used to be my website, my real estate domain. I moved it over. That's my actual coaching, speaking, and training website right now. But that will convert over, and there will be some new things. I'm in the midst of creating the domain and getting a website together for living well in turbulent times. So that's going to be coming. You can find me, of course, on social media. Facebook is at Paul Fedynich. Same as Instagram. I'm at it's at Paul Fedynich. Twitter is at Paul_Fed. So I'm easily found, or just Google Paul Fedynich, and who knows what you're going to come up with.
Who knows what's going to
Yeah, I have to do that every once in a while because I found some things, and so I try to.
We should all do that.
But yeah, I do recommend that everybody do that once in a while, and including search yourself on social media, because I was a doctor in Atlanta. Who knew?
There you go. Who knew? All right, you're a joy, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. You guys check it out, paulfed.com. I tagged him, and I'll tag him on all the social media again. Just click on it and reach out. That's probably the easiest way. You can find a little bit of information out, but you can also go to the website and reach him. Paul, thanks for sharing today. I did not know that about your story. So very inspirational. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, Ted. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll be back. Happy Monday, June 1st. We'll see you later. Reach out to Paul. Don't we all want to know what to do when we're living well, trying to live well in turbulent times? That's why I love this title and I love the book. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.